once more, and welcome to my cellar. I'm getting ready to go, starting to get ready to go to GaryCon. So there will not be an episode next week because I will be in GaryCon, at GaryCon. In it. Yeah, you get me. I had thought about doing a on the site, etc., but I don't have the camera for it. So we'll just have to wait. And we'll give you a full report when we get back. Love the discussion of fantasy monsters versus mythological sources. I'd argue that we all owe Gary and D&D for the general public having a more or less standard idea what these creatures are now, far more so than to literary figures like Tolkien. Before D&D, Tolkien was something we nerds read in high school or college. Now everyone who plays World of Warcraft or goes to a movie knows what an orc is. Yeah, it is kind of neat the way we've infiltrated the fringes of the general consciousness, isn't it? There's the myth, and then there's what we make up, and what we make up is generally more terrifying, more a lot of things, because we like to be scared. I remember the times when we had no dice. We took a deck of playing cards and used them for random number generators. Ace through 10 got you most of your dice needs, with the jack, the queen, as an 11 and 12. For a D20, we would take a black suit of ace through 10 and represent numbers 1 to 10, a red suit to do the same. Percent of dice were rolled similarly, using the reds being 10s and the blacks being 1s. You could also generate numbers such as 1 to 7, 1 to 13, 1 to 21, etc. It worked pretty well for us, but then we stumbled upon a brilliantly written article in Dragon called What to Do When the Dog Eats Your Dice. Okay, I don't know if this individual is pulling my leg or if this is just serendipity or whatever. But yes, I wrote that article under a pseudonym. Back in the early days of the Dragon, when I needed to fill a hole, and it went the same way in Strategic Review. And I thought I did it in Strategic Review. And anyway, yeah, I wrote it under the name of Omar Quailish. And I was very self-conscious. I didn't want people to think I had a vanity magazine. And here's my name as the editor, and here's my editorial piece in the front. And I didn't want to be putting in articles with my name on them for fear people would think I was just doing this as a vanity or an ego. And I still thought it was pretty good, and I showed it to Gary. And one of the very few times I asked his opinion on something, only because I said, I think, this would lighten the mood, it's funny, and I don't want to put it under my own name because of the aforementioned. And he said, yeah, okay, cool, and we did it, and it was the Mexican jumping beans, and the mano a mano was pulling chest hairs, which back then was easy to envision, but now with so many ladies playing, that one's kind of fallen by the wayside. But, there's lots of ways to generate numbers. I was trying to explain, okay. This was written at a time when dice weren't readily available also. And, so I'm just tongue-in-cheek. Well, there's other things you can do. All right. Kia ora Tim. Just got back from my holiday to New Zealand. I'm guessing Kia ora is from there. I have long been a fantasy since my mother read us The Hobbit as children. Fast forward to last week, and I got to visit the Hobbiton set. Now, this got me thinking about immersion and buying into things. I know as a logical bloke I was sitting in a movie set, but I was flipping out walking around this place and what it meant to me. Meanwhile, this other person on the tour was just snapping selfies. When we got to the Green Dragon Inn, I was tucked in a corner with a porter reading a favorite section and sending a video to my mom to say thanks for introducing me to fantasy. I saw the selfies fiend editing their photos. They could have been anywhere. just divorced from the moment. Sometimes I wonder if this is the biggest issue with D&D today. Some people just don't invest or buy into the moment, treating it as a selfish level, whereas others want to immerse. Some just want to roll for perception and play it like a board game. P.S. Lots of murmuring about Warner Brothers making more Lords of the Rings, etc. P.P.S. I didn't get a YouTube alert to tell me you had posted a video, so blame them for the lack of questions. Well, unfortunately, I have no control over that whatsoever. None whatsoever, and God knows that they're no more, no less. Well, they're a lot better than some. Good knows. Well, I kind of understand. I've been to Europe twice with my wife, and I've been to Japan and Hong Kong and the Philippines with myself or a buddy when I was in the service, and none of those trips were selfie cameras, even, or phones. I don't believe we had phones that could take pictures, but we took a camera, a small camera, a digital camera, because we wanted to record what we were seeing. And yeah, we took a couple of selfies, us in one of the cars on the big sky wheel, eye in the sky thing. But I understand what you're saying. But yet again, I hope that some of those people running around taking selfies were going to get back to the hotel and start looking at them, and then it was going to go, wow, we were there. Everybody has a different perception of a hallowed place like Hobbiton. They went there to take pictures in front of themselves, in front of round doors and stuff, to show people that they'd been. And there's nothing wrong with that. The fact that they didn't hold the same reverence for it that you did that's just, que sera, sera. What will be, will be. Life goes on. I hope it didn't diminish your enjoyment while you were there. And I try not to judge the tourists around me when I'm traveling different places, because we all process awe and delight in different ways. And of just proving, hey, I was here, hey, I was there. Okay, that validates their trip. But I understand what you're saying too. There's oh wow. It's like this feeling I've described a few times of being in that second Lord of the Rings movie and realizing the part I'd played in it. And you're right, some want to immerse and some don't. What I don't like, it's the failure to encourage immersion in 5. Everything's a roll, a perception check, whatever. And therefore you don't immerse yourself into it. And I think the lack of immersion by later players is just a symptom of the system. It's not designed for a deep delve. Okay, I'm all right with that if that's what you want to play. It's fine, and I don't mean anything derogatory by that. We should all play those games that we enjoy. There's no point in playing stuff you're not having fun with. Why do it? I don't, by the way, P.S., I don't have the link yet for the lecture thing that I did at UC. They're on spring break this week, so I imagine I'll have it when, hopefully just before I go to GaryCon, I'll get a hold of that link. Still trying to figure out, and I hope finally I figured out how to send the form back that'll get me paid for it. Let's see, next page. Thanks for the videos. I wonder if you have a favorite or top 5 TSR produced adventure module. Well, yeah, I've mentioned this a couple of times. The G series, because it's the first we did, they still hold up well. They're, in my opinion, timeless. I didn't have anything to do with writing them. Nothing. So don't construe that as talking about my own work. I'm not. And the other one would be Hamlet, the Village of Hamlet, and that's because I did have a character there, and during extensive playtest sessions, I was Jeru the Ash Staff, the wizard, or the Druid of the Grove, is all we called him back then. He didn't have a name. Okay. This next one's going to engender an apology on my behalf. We hadn't heard about your Patreon efforts lately. Please tell us how it's going and how people can support this channel through it. Well, the people that are supporting me are doing wonderfully, and I'm miserably failing to live up to my obligations. So, again, I find it so hard to find one night, because, it is a Q&A or bullshit session or whatever you want to call it. I find it really hard to find one night that everybody can sit down and be available for it. And I know I got a life too. So what I'm thinking is this. I'm going to look over here on my calendar. All right. I'll be back on the 26th. How about this? April Fool's Day, April 1st. That's a Saturday. That's when I'm going to write a note now. And that's not a joke. I'll have a Zoom address for you. And we'll probably start it at, well, I can do either 9 or 10 in the evening, Eastern Time, and do a 2 or 3 hour bullshit session. I really have no valid excuse. I just had 13 irons in the fire. And I haven't gotten around to doing the promised videos. The way it's set up is in 3 levels, $3, $6, and $9 a month. $3 says, "Hey, keep doing what you're doing. Here, go buy a donut." And I'm not denigrating that. $6 says, "Hey, I really like what you're doing. How about doing a video where you just rant?" And that's what they get. They get the $6 get a video where I just rant, and I've resisted doing those for a couple of reasons, but I'm going to start doing those again also. Those, however, I can simply have Jim dress them up and then tell you when they're out. But the next bullshit session will be April 1st. Yes, I know, April Fool's Day, but solemn pledge, it's for real. And we'll talk about whatever it feels like. So I'm trying to give you a couple of weeks' notice. So hopefully it's not booked up yet. And I pledge to try to get back to doing the monthly. I don't have quite as many irons in the fire right now. I am still doing tutoring 2 afternoons a week, and I found that to be quite a commitment of energy, because it's with my 8-year-old great-granddaughter. And that's basically, I've got to buy some software to dress up some things I need to do, and I need to I need to do. There's other expenses coming up, and that's what this helps with. And it also gives me a Mountain Dew to drink. Ooh, say that real fast. 3 times. All right. Love your retrospective of the early days. Since you mentioned the Drow in episode 253, I was inspired to go back and look over the D3 Vault of the Drow module. Given Gary Gax's flowery description of the area of the module and the strange radiation that illuminated it, I get the impression that the description was meant to convey a blacklight poster, fever dream type of environment. If this is accurate, can you elaborate? Were there any of the home games or sand tables played under black light? Well, while I was here, I had the only usable sand table, and no. The only thing I played on the sand, well, mostly what I played on the sand table is armor, tanks. Gary, as far as I know, had no black lights in his house. And what Gary meant by his strange emanations and radiations and illuminations, I can't tell you exactly. I didn't even play test this. So I wasn't there to hear his words as he described it. Let alone, I haven't read it to see how it's written. But I can tell you we didn't play under black light, ever. Moonlight, sunlight, artificial light. No black light. Could you please explain to us the wardrobe of a wizard? Imagine you walk into a shop that sells clothes for wizard folk. Well, I've never bought into the image that was on the old TSR trademark of the wizard with the robes and all that. Never bought into that myself. If you're going to look for prototypes or exemplars, one of the neatest wizards in movies up to this point in time was the sorcerer in the Conan movies, his buddy. I can't remember his name right offhand. And he certainly didn't run around in a robe or anything, though he did have some formal regalia that he might don for something, heavy duty. I've never bought into them running around in robes, for one thing, unless a significant portion of the population was also running around wearing robes. I would not want to single myself out like that. I would envision a crafty wizard wearing something that would let him blend into the crowd at the fair or at the weekly market, monthly market, or whatever. I would not want to. I never considered that wizards would draw attention to themselves like that, because in a lot of the early canon of what we call Appendix N, wizards were not always trusted by the common folk. They were looked down upon, except when you needed one, of course. But that being the case, why would you draw attention to yourself? You certainly wouldn't run around in a robe with stars and stuff on it, drawing attention to yourself. And of course, unless you were Rincewind, or not Rincewind, Terry Pratchett's protagonist. Yeah, there he's making fun of the fact. In fact, the whole Discworld, Pratchett, and I love the Discworld series. I read it from front. I made a point of reading it, every one of the books in the order, in the correct order. But he makes fun of wizards. Great fun of wizards. And they all want to run around in hats. They outdo each other with hats with stars on them. And they aren't all that well thought of on the Discworld. But they have to, because it's a badge of who they are. I would have them pass as just whatever the people in the area are wearing, or whatever the people in the area are accustomed to seeing from, a border country, or, through trade or whatever. I certainly wouldn't prance into a village painted pink with glitter in my hair, ringing bells, announcing, "Here I am, I'm a wizard." Anyway, that's just a little facetious. Really, I don't envision wizards wearing something that would make themselves visible. They're kind of weak and wimpy, which would, especially when there's, would make them targets for kidnappings. Do this for us, or we'll kill you. Do that for you, and they may not even know how to do what this is. Nope. Blend in. Last D&D session, our druid had a potion of hill giant strength. Okay, druid, hill giant potion. Lasts for 1 hour. They wanted to change shape, but to use potion in that form. So they drank it after changing to a wolf. It was given to them by another character. Yeah, okay, I understand that. You can just pour it out and let them lap it up. Would the potion still be in effect if the druid changed back to half-elf form? No. It goes on to say, I made a DM call of yes, still in blood, and so yes, potion will work. I view lycanthropy and shape changing as a very wrenching physical and chemical experience. If you're going to change into a wolf, there's going to be just more than a shape change to be that wolf. You're going to have, compared to a human, heightened hearing, heightened senses, heightened smell. Now, a druid did this. A druid ought to know better. What I would have done, probably, upon taking the second potion, okay, now I'm a wolf, now I'm going to do this other thing, I'd have seriously looked at their constitution and mulled over what are the probabilities or the odds even that they might counteract each other or have a deleterious third effect. I've never been one to mix potions with the exception of mixing, doing a haste and something else, because I've always kind of looked at haste like a Red Bull or a heal, a Cure Light as a kind of like a Red Bull. But I don't think that mixing heavier duty potions is a very good idea. And however, if they manage to do it successfully the first time, then I guess you have to give them a considerably lower odds the second time of it having a bad side effect, and then thereafter, okay. But getting a hold of all those potions should be pretty difficult and prevent any foolishness like that happening in a short period of time. Change into a wolf, you adopt wolf characteristics, wolf heartbeat, wolf blood, wolf smelling, whatever. Change back into a half-elf, you lose all that, and I would also, you would lose all the benefits granted by being in the wolf form. That's how I would do it. And that was if you succeeded trying to do that. Mixing those two potions. Whew. Heavy duty stuff. All right. An old question popped up in an OD&D discussion on another channel this week. It's the age-old debate regarding elves switching classes. I argued it's straightforward, but the channel is under the impression you can choose the higher hit points of the fighting man every adventure. Shouldn't it be based on which class you've chosen? How does the switch class feature of elves protect point generation. Many thanks. Well, I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to tell you how I interpret the question. Now, if you're talking about switching a class, okay, you're an elf and you start out as a fighter, and okay, you're going to switch a class to whatever, because I don't do class switching very, very seldom, bards and thieves. But okay, and that's just my view of how I want my fantasy world to work. So, having said that and stated that, I do not, in fact, as I recall, trying to make it to Bard, you always, when you have to change, you always have to be what the change is. And so if that's weaker, then you're weaker. It's a little gray. I'll grant you that. It's a little gray. But I don't favor allowing dodges like that to favor the players. Not like that. If you are, I don't even know what progression you're going for which of the 117 different character classes there are nowadays. However, as I recall on bards, you had to be a fighter first. And then you became a bard. And I don't recall that you still had all the hit points of the fighter. Because you remember, hit points are kind of an amorphous thing that represent many things. But they're also important how they accrue and how many are limited. They're also very important in balancing the character classes. But that just goes against what I would consider a sense of fairness. You have to if you're going to change and shift gears, so to speak, then you have to be willing to take at least a partial step back. After all, if you do that and then you make it back up, now you get the benefits of two classes working for you. Because let's face it, first edition bards can be bad. Bad. Dan the Bard does a great song about band camp, where the second edition bard challenged the first edition bard, not knowing that they had been a fighter first, and got his ass whipped. But you had to step down and then come back, make it back up. You know, just because you're a big shot at your company that makes piston rings doesn't mean you should expect to go to a completely different field and still be a big shot when you're a neophyte in that field. But that's my take on it. You regenerate as what you are. You don't get an advantage for what you were. In a nutshell. Okay, thanks for addressing my questions on the Drow. It's interesting you came away with the impression of Dark Fae. I used the word Goblin. Well, before Gary and all of us ruined the word Goblin, Goblin had a different meaning, and they were little, weazen, skinny. You look at some of the Rackham, the Arthur Rackham illustrations from the 30s. I'm not sure where Rackham was, to be honest. I think it was earlier than that. But they're often little spindly-legged, spindly-armed, long, funny noses. Okay. I used the word goblin, but fairies were another summary equally appropriate. I appreciate the game-related material, but what I really hope to find was other literature where Drow are used. I don't have any. I don't know any. I never did the research on the Drow, so I never had occasion to do any of that. I don't know of any. I'm sorry. I really don't know where that came from. Where Gary got that inspiration. Don't know. They came long after I had divorced myself from the operation of TSR Games, because I was now in charge of TSR periodicals. So the paths diverged. Hope to see you there. Yes, it will be great. Thank you. Okay, yeah, I'm assuming this is Gary Con. Okay, hello again. The day before, after I came back from a camp where I've gone to 3 times already and learned new skills or improved old ones such as archery. As someone who has a weak physique and haven't done sports since 2016, bows are hard to wield. I most likely wouldn't be able to survive the first level of the dungeon. Anyway, after getting back home and doing some thinking about campaigns that I've delayed for months, I've decided to get back on track. However, I'm out of ideas on how to approach things. What are some tools or books that I could use to inspire me as a DM? Oh, come on, man. Do you really mean this? You really mean that? Any book, any story, any anecdote, some little minor anecdote side thing that happened in a campaign before, run with it. Take it and build. Once you start with an idea, and you don't need a profound Nobel Prize winning idea. Think of something funny that happened one time, or weird, or odd, or a favorite scene in a book you've read, or a movie you've watched, and build on that. If you don't want to construct dungeons, it's my understanding that there's several sources available, both random generators and people that do incredible drawing work on dungeons. Myself, while I'm not I'm okay with a ruler and a pencil and graph paper. I wasn't always very good at freehand sketching this stuff that wasn't straight and right angled. Here's a challenge for you, and it should be easy. Think of the last bad fantasy movie that you saw and write an adventure that does it better. What should they have done? You do it. How should they have done it? You do it. I really don't know. So many people get so many ideas from so many different places. You might be watching a sci-fi movie and get an idea for a fantasy monster or something. Take something really mundane and make it sinister. Have a village where, or have a small town or a very small city or a larger town, where all the youth belong to an organization like Boy Scouts or like Girl Scouts, and have them being indoctrinated to do dark things and come home and kill their parents and stuff like that, and go find out what's behind it. And there you go, free hook. Really, there's so many different ways. And now I love this one. I found my old Playmobil castle in my folks' attic. It's got tons of little accessories down to spoons and buckets and blacksmith tongs. How would I use it for an RPG? Oh, with great pleasure and great fun. For one thing, everybody would be one of the little people. That's your character. Okay, there you are. You're going to play tabletop with this. That's your character. They're roughly scaled. The little people are actually bigger than they need to be for little hands to pick them up. Okay. And I would have an adventure in the castle, rescue somebody from the dungeons, rescue them from the tower, being held in the tower, and get some old Playmobil. Well, there's lots of old monsters from some of the old brick sets and block sets and Playmobil, and some of those. Get a few of those, and heck yeah, pretend you're kids again. Except now you can drink beer at the table, and think up really intricate plots, and you know how to read the dice. Oh, I'd have a ball with that. We'd be storming the castle. We'd be in the castle fighting off stuff. Oh, hell yes. Sounds like a ball to me. And I'd be able to use it for a bunch of 10, 11-year-olds, introducing them to grown-up make-believe. Oh, man, that would be fun. Or at least has potential to be. I remember a friend found some dice at a learning school supply store. Yes. Yep, that's where they first came from. School supplies, educational stores, Edward Scientific. There were others. Was not able to make it into your game at for GaryCon in time. If I see you at the convention, I hope you don't mind if I ask you to explain to my players why ability checks are bad game design. I'll explain it right now. Don't know if they'll be at the convention. I don't like ability checks as a standard. Oh, you have a whatever. You have a 65% chance of seeing, something or whatever, and it just automatically works. No. They take out any incentive at all to think. Any incentive at all to press the DM. Why? Because you're not asking questions. You're not gathering intelligence. You're not learning very much at all. Not learning very much at all about your environment. Asking questions and gathering intelligence, gathering information, is the most important thing the players need to focus on if they want to survive and succeed. Perception checks, all that. No. It takes that away. It doesn't, in a certain way, it dumbs down the game because it doesn't encourage you to think. It says here, rather than thinking, we'll give you this on a plate. That's why I don't like it. With perception checks and all that, skill checks and all that, there's no incentive to ask questions, think outside the box, come up with novel solutions, find a great workaround. As a DM, I can tell you, while it is immensely frustrating when the group comes up with a workaround, at the same time, I admire their tenacity and their perception to be able to do that and come up with it. I don't want to make all my stuff foolproof. Everything has to have a possibility to be defeated. Every monster has to have a weak spot. Every dilemma needs to have a way to think your way out of it. MacGyver your way out of it. That's why I think they're bad for game design. They assume too much of what the players ought to be doing. And if we were talking about immersion earlier, all right, talking about immersion, don't get as much immersion when you rely on that. It's like trying to dive wearing water rings. Pardon me, don't be alarmed. I had a dry throat and tried to laugh. Very perceptive listener rather. To level drain or not to level drain. I noted that level drain was missing from your response to recent-ish questions on imbalance between PCs and how to deal with an overpowered one, causing problems in the play of the game. Is level drain off the table for you as a solution to party imbalance, or would it be just another more drastic option? Pardon me. Man, I'm really not tubercular. Absolutely, level drain is on the table. If this imbalanced player was being totally obnoxious and running in, first every time to seize the glory, absolutely, I would put him in a position where if he failed to do his due diligence, that would definitely bring him a shock to his system. Perhaps he'd, again, it depends on the disparity. If you got a guy, and again, I'm using old school numbers. If you got a guy that's at 9 or 10 and everybody else is at 5 and 6, yeah, that's disparate, that's unbalanced, and you can be drained more than one level, and it might serve as a signal lesson that no man is an island. If all of a sudden this number 9 guy wakes up and finds himself a 7, and only wakes up because you didn't let him get eaten or whatever, it might have a shock. He might get all pissed off and say you did that on purpose. And no, not necessarily. You did it as an object lesson about where fools rushing in and all that kind of stuff. I have threatened level drain with what I consider against what I consider to be ill-conceived behavior. You're right. The mere mention of anything that can do that just chills the soul, and as it should, because nobody wants to go down a notch. There's some more interesting follow-up here. It's certainly the most drastic option, but also I can see how it can be an object lesson for the rest of the time that person campaigns. He said he can see how it could be a bit complicated to set up. Or the DM could point out that a piece of treasure the overpowered PC picked up just sucked their life force a level or so before they could throw it away, and make a note not to touch it again. And he says maybe it's too messy in a not fun way. People might feel cheated. That would be the biggest, I think, possibility of ill behavior. Would they feel they were cheated? And people that fudge a lot expect everybody else's fudges a lot. And it's human nature. We always suspect each other of the worst, and it's often some of the things we do ourselves. I gotta let him holler. If everybody could have faced the same danger, it's not like you had a blue bolt come out of the sky directly at him. And if it works out that, oops, he's the one that got drained, boo-hoo-hoo, that's life. Life goes on. And don't worry too much about it. If it helps the game, it was good medicine. If he gets pissed off and leaves, it was good medicine. People that imbalance the game selfishly need to all play with each other. Let's see, we'll go on here. Can level drain be seen as a return to youth or de-evolution process back to a fresher state? Or should it always be a wearing down type of deal where the life force is robbed from a PC? Absolutely. There should be nothing good about a level drain. Nothing good. Yes, it should be wearing. I would say not only does it make you lose a level, but it ages you an extra 5 years if you get into aging and stuff like that in your campaign, if you go into those details. I would say that it debilitates you severely. Your very stamina has been sucked out of you forcefully. But hey, that's just me. Personally, I don't get the desire for another system that pretends to be basic 1E or 2P when you can just buy the PDF or POD these days. I love the extra adventures and settings, etc., but rules-wise, I don't see the incentive. That's cool. What you might see if you flip through the rules is, ooh, that's a neater way to handle this thing or that thing, and therefore hybridize your campaign even a little more. I don't do that. I use the book's rules that I use and the stuff that comes out of my head for the most part nowadays. I think YouTube must have flubbed it last week. I never got a notification for the video. Well, I'm sorry. Now, the last comment, I'm not sure. It's kind of like an echoing cackle up in the balcony. It says, "Dice?" ? Laugh out loud. Well, not sure what you're going for right there. But, yeah, we all love dice, don't we? Or hate them, depending on how they treated us. And then I want to just close up on an observation. Jim said it first, and I talked to a couple of other people. The inflation is the effects of the inflation is now starting to hit the Kickstarter market. And it's getting harder to kickstart for smaller, and mid-range projects than it used to be, and for there to be any incentive because of mainly because of the increased paper costs, which means increased printing costs. And Kickstarter was always it should have been always a very carefully balanced balance sheet. Okay, they need to hit this dollar amount because that'll print this many to give away, to provide to that many subscribers. And now to figure out a price that you've got to make to make your nut, get your nut there right where you need to. It's gone up enormously. And the paper and the production costs have really, really gone up. And we're going to see, I think, fewer Kickstarters because of that. And because that to get it off the ground, the initial price is going to be terribly high. I mean, who's going to pay $60 for a card game? But you could see that. So watch carefully what comes out, as Kickstarters over the next 8-10 months, and I think you'll see that they're going up again. Postage has gone up because when you use a heavier paper or heavier stock, they weigh more. All right, as I had it outlined to me by one person today, everything has gone up, and if you want to try to pay your writers and try to pay your artists a decent rate, that goes up. In other words, it's getting harder and harder to kickstart. So, be alert. Okay, off to GaryCon next week. Got my oil changed today, got the tires rotated, checked all my fluids. Everything's great. So we pack up Tuesday evening and leave Wednesday morning, I imagine. And, I'll pack up. I found a solution to my problem. I've been invited to a couple of dinner reception things, during which I'll be running a game. But one of the people playing in the game, who knows it well enough, said he'd be glad to take over and run it in my absence so I could go attend. And I'm very grateful to Scott for doing that. And that means I get to go to a couple of dinner/receptions that I wouldn't normally get to attend. So I'll be running the wheel. I have not developed a new coin yet, so I had to go back and have some struck cast in pewter this time instead of zinc and polished. So they will look different than the originals. I had 300. I've given them almost all away. And I'm going to design a new one that I will have available come the fall when I'm at Game Hall. But that's just a little accessory token thing as part of my game. And I'm going to be running Dirt Track Saturday night, which is a marvelous set of, I have to call them miniatures rules, for racing on a dirt track, either late model modified or wing sprints, sprint cars. And I found this years ago online. And the man that designed and developed it, his father was a legend in, I think they were in Pennsylvania, was a legend in his area in Pennsylvania for all the races that he ran and all the races that he won. And so this is obviously a simulation that's been simplified enough that it can be gamed, or if you choose, you can even set up campaigns and have regular round of races. If you had a lot of friends that like running this game, you could have a circuit. So I'm going to be running that, and I'm going to be running the Wheel of Blame 4 times. And I'll be busy. But I'm also going to be, I think I'm going to be at the World of Game Design booth to sign some old guard game stuff that's finally coming out. Yay! Curse of the Weaver Queen. And I'll be off. I'm going to stop a couple times at Wizard Tower to sign if anybody wants it. I don't sell autographs. I'm not Pete Rose. I'll be there to see D20 Delving, our audio delight. So if you're coming to GaryCon, see you there. If you can't make it, I'll give you a full report in 2 weeks. Until that time, Todata Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. TSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory, Titan with tramp under a tree,
High as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.
Curmudgeon.